Point to the agenda, and first item is approval of the previous minutes.
There's a printed out copy on everyone's desk if you want to look at it.
Y'all look at those. Everybody had a chance to go over them?
Yep.
All right. Do
Make
I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
a motion to approve minutes of last meeting.
Second. All right. Any adjustments or amendments or any mistakes y'all find?
No mistakes.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. Public comment. See any public comment, but we do have Mr. Chris from Upstate Forever to talk to us about conservation easements. So if you'd like to come up, we'll be glad to listen.
Absolutely. I have hard copies of my presentation here because you never know what's going to happen with digital these days. And in addition to that, I have a publication that we created several years ago called Your Land, Your Legacy. Mm-hmm. And for this presentation,
Thank you.
what I've done is I've taken sort of the skeleton and the meat and bones of our publication and applied it to, and I have copies for you as well.
Thank you.
I basically spent some time looking at the Coney County Comprehensive Plan and sort of evaluated that, looking at our process for conducting outreach, working with stakeholders and landowners to place conservation easements on their land. And I know that the county is in the process, or you're about to begin the process of going over the comprehensive plan again and updating it. So some of the stuff I have in here may be a bit dated, but I don't think a lot of that's going to change much. And even so, I think the gist of this presentation will still be valid. From what I gathered a few meetings ago, I was asked to come in here and sort of talk about the conservation easement process as sort of an education component, an outreach, and a way for the Ag Advisory Board to use that to protect and sort of enhance the agricultural components of this county. And I think that's a great topic that I think, especially because I can use this to converse with you, in which case I would love as much feedback on this as possible, because I want to take this in turn and apply it to a broader audience, such as maybe the next farmer and rancher listening session. I will miss the one in November, but the one after that, potentially,
would be a great opportunity to speak to a wider audience. And Adam, I don't know how to change these slides. Am I going to have to just ask you to do that? I'll just do something like this. So, Your Land, Your Legacy, this is the title of the publication that you have in front of you. And I'm not going to go through that, but I'll just go through this presentation in a nutshell. So, Adam, if you please. Upstate Forever is a 501c3 nonprofit conservation group working in the 10 counties of the upstate of South Carolina, including Oconee County. What we like to protect is critical lands, critical waters, and the unique character of the upstate. So basically, everything that people care for typically is what we want to protect. There's a lot of common ground there. Whether it's recreation areas, whether it's drinking water intakes, whether it's a family farm, Century Farm, or just the flavor of the area, the region, which can be different. Even though we know all the way down towards Lake Kiwi or up towards the mountains, you can see it's different parts of this county, but it's all Oconee County. So, looking through the comprehensive plan. I noticed a few things, and I pulled some of these out to looking at the character of how this county is sort of described. And you can describe it as rural, agricultural, agrarian lifestyles. There's desire for economic opportunities are still there. This county is blessed with a lot of high-quality water sources, lakes and rivers alike. And really good soils. Now, when I say arable soils, I'm not talking specifically a whole lot of like corn or anything like that, but you do have a high agricultural component here as well, and it's a vital component, vital characteristic of this county. In the past, there has been cotton and tobacco. Livestock is more newer relative to that. Dairy is pretty big in this area as well. In the past, there was textile, a lot of dams, powering wood and grain mills as well. So this is all a part of the background of this county. And a lot of that really hasn't changed. We know textile mills have sort of moved around. But the current character is still a lot of the same here. You still have, I mean, if you think about the past 50 to 100 years, we do have larger hydropower operations going on, Duke moving in with the Kiwi Taxway projects. A lot of emphasis on recreation with the wild and scenic rivers, the Chattooga River, the lakes here, bringing a lot of tourism in that aspect. The increase of hunting lands, and with the sort of change in the timber and agriculture up here, as moving away from some of that to more of the livestock grazing and the hunting lands as well. Sorry, I got copies for you as well if you need.
This is Chris Starker from Upstate Forever. We'll talk about conservation easements.
So previous comprehensive plans, I've gone over this, and I don't actually expect the new comprehensive plan, updates at least, to really be a whole lot different from this. Next slide, please. And what we typically see, and we expect to see, is that a lot of people are going to want to maintain the character of this area. That's a pretty common theme in most counties of the upstate. How to do that is a bit problematic because you want to stay the same, and yet you also want to have change. You want the economic opportunities, you want development opportunities, and how to capitalize on that, and how to preserve or at least conserve some of that rural character can create some tensions. But the comprehensive plan and the conservation easement process is a great tool for making that happen. A lot of people want to be able to see the stars. This is sort of general idea of they want to be able to go outside and they don't want to be blinded by traffic lights and street lights. And I know when I drive home tonight, I'm going to be going down 123, and there's a car dealership on the way that looks like a UFO landing site until I get closer to it. You know, those kind of things are great, but when I'm out away from the cities, I want to be able to see the stars. I want to be able to hear the birds. I want to be away from traffic and traffic congestion. want a safe place for my kids, I want good schools, but I want parks, I want recreation opportunities, and I want to expand my farm. I want to have good produce available, and these are typical things that you're going to hear. And I don't expect the next comprehensive plan process anyway, to be any different. And that whole comprehensive plan is that process of determining what that future could be, and how to make some of those equalizations there. Agritourism destinations, Oconee's got that. Capitalizing on that is, we see Walhalla's doing that already. Stump House Mountain, great opportunity there. Natural and outdoor recreation opportunities sort of signifies what Oconee is about, that and the agricultural, local food productions. Heritage fairs, just recently, great opportunity showcasing that. It's a real vital component of this county. The historic destinations are here. Historic forts, historic battles, Coney Town. I mean, this county is ripe with all of these. Hunting and fishing opportunities, nature trails, blueways. This is a gold mine for Oconee County, and this is where a lot of conservation easements can be very useful. What Upstate Forever does, what we're particularly good at, and what we do to make these conservation easements happen successfully, is we work with various stakeholders. Very common for us to say that we don't have successes without partnerships, and finding those partnerships is what we typically do. Whether it's working with a specific landowner, whether it's working with municipalities, local governments, even bringing in state and federal dollars to help subsidize or provide some support for projects. Other nonprofits, universities, bringing people together, bringing families together and communities is really how these things work. Comprehensive planning process is no different, and there's a lot of parallels there. How we execute what we try to achieve, what our goals are, is based on science. We've partnered with some funds from the Packlet Milliken Foundation, partnering with Furman University, did some mapping to really focus our outreach efforts. It's one thing to have folks come to us, when this happens, that want to protect their farm, or municipalities that want to create some extra park space. But sometimes we have to do a little bit of work on our own, is to educate the public on what the values of a conservation easement are. And we use this science-based approach to highlight water quality and lands, because they're inextricable. Land uses affect water qualities, and water quality affects quality of life. And we know that the water quality here is fantastic. We know that there's a lot of drinking water intakes here, and that's important for this area. And that's how we approach these areas. In addition to that, we have recently, so that there's going to be some slight over that your packets will have a little bit better graphics here. The image layout here is slightly overlaid. Working with USDA through the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, that's RCPP. They have agricultural conservation easement programs that are administered through NRCS. Unfortunately, the Farm Bill wasn't reauthorized, so the NRCS isn't able to grant new projects right now, but we have funds of our own that we can distribute throughout the 10-county upstate region. In particular, focusing on areas with high-quality soils. So that previous slide highlighted a lot of areas in the blue, which is like sort of the northern and western portions of this county. The RCCP funds will allow us to work with the agricultural components, which is almost the entirety of Oconee County. The RCPP funds would apply specifically to agricultural areas with prime soils of 60% or better, to help keep those lands as working farms in the future. The NRCS provides the conservation assistance to the landowners and the agricultural producers, and we actually try to find the match for that. And then the technical and the financial assistance comes through that program as well. And those programs can be anywhere from fencing cattle out of streams to including these additional conservation projects like that. There's hundreds of the NRCS has hundreds of these projects that they can implement as well that can go on top of it. So not only protecting the farms in Oconee County, but really kind of bolstering them, making them better. The conservation easement process itself, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, they protect land forever. So when a landowner puts a conservation easement on his farm or his land or his forest or whatever, it is in perpetuity. So it's a big decision, and it's a decision that Upstate Forever never enters into lightly. So we always recommend the landowner has their own legal advisor, so they also have their own accountant as well, because it's a big decision to make. But through this process, and it partners quite well with the conservation comprehensive planning process, you can achieve the goals that you want to outline for the future. Working with the landowners and as well. What Upstate Forever brings to that table is a lifetime stewardship. Now, Upstate Forever is a nationally accredited land trust, so we adhere to and we are accountable to the Land Trust Association, the National Land Trust Association, and follow their guidelines. And so it's an additional big deal when you take a piece of property and put it into a conservation easement and expect us to steward that in perpetuity. That's not just 5 years from now or 50 years from now, it's 500 years from now. It is forever, and we monitor that land for those conservation values. So I think a good scenario to look at is what's the difference between selling your land and a conservation easement, besides the fact that one aspect will actually determine the future or help sort of predict the future and the land use and the quality of that land, and the other one's sort of up in the air. Between selling your land and placing it into a conservation easement, we can use this example of a land, say 75 acres, at a value of about $3,300 per acre, about $250,000 parcel. And that can be any kind of parcel. It can be farmland, it can be pasture, it can be timber, it can be historic properties, it can be future park and recreation areas. Typical land values are appreciating at about 2% annually. We all know that can fluctuate, and it's reassessed every 5 years. So typical landowners faced with these scenarios, they can hold on to the land and let the value appreciate, in which case they'll be paying property taxes on it as it comes around. They can sell it, or they can conserve it and they can keep it. Looking at those three scenarios, you can see what happens in that land value from the perspective of that landowner. If they hold on to it, they can see the value of that land goes up and then gradually increases, and that becomes sort of a tax liability. And in many cases, what we see are a lot of cash or cash poor but land rich landowners, and they've got a great valuable land, and they are having a hard time with these tax liabilities that they have, especially if they're coming into retirement, or in the case of if they're timbering it, they may want to offset that value. But if they put it into, if they sell it, you can see the value for them just drops. They make a little bit of money off of it, and then it's gone. But in a conservation easement, they're able to obtain some of that value now and continue to benefit from that investment in the future. That over a 15-year period, what you end up with, if they were to hold on to it, in 15 years, maybe that value of that land would go up $120,000 or so. If they were to sell it today, they may make $50,000, and that's it, they're done. And for some people, that makes sense. And if they put it into a conservation easement, they benefit immediately, better than in both cases through tax benefits. and they can sell it in the future. They still have that potential to sell it in the future. It's not off the market yet. But in the meantime, they still maintain ownership. And for a lot of folks, especially with Century Farms or with just a history with that, if they have a deep association with their land, this is a very important component. Next slide. There are criteria for this. Upstate Forever doesn't put just any land into a conservation easement. We do have criteria that we use. This is IRS criteria right here. You must meet at least one of these for it to be eligible for a conservation easement. That is to obtain and benefit from the tax credits and deductions. Under an easement, you have to have that recreation or education component. Habitat for fish or wildlife, we've seen that as well. Open space, that includes farmland, forest land, scenic enjoyment, historically important areas. These are all kind of no-brainers. Upstate Forever, and I don't think this is in this presentation, but it is in that Your Land, Your Legacy brochure in front of you. Typically, Upstate Forever protects lands of 100 acres or more. So those are wide, large areas that can be protected. And then we have sort of some exceptions to those rules. If they're north of Highway 11, which is a scenic area, if they're adjacent to waterways, it could be the lakes or some of the rivers, or if there are prime soils on those properties as well. So we have exceptions to those rules, then where we can accept sometimes parcels of 30 acres or more. Conservation easement process is slow. It doesn't happen overnight. The typical process can last up to a year, sometimes longer. Oconee Town conservation easement took several years. I'm working with one now over in Greenville County that's been going on for 3 or 4 years as well. Sometimes they happen in less than that, can be upwards of 6 months, as short as 6 months. The landowner must have title to that property for at least 1 year. And so in some cases, landowners will purchase a property, want to put it into an easement, and begin that easement process. And when the 1 year time comes up, they can put it into it immediately. But that's a pretty rare case. Most of the time, we're working with landowners who've had that ownership for a great deal of time. These major steps are confirming these compatible goals. And when I say that, because not all conservation easements are appropriate for every landowner. It doesn't make sense for everybody. But for some landowners, it makes perfect sense. And we want to make sure that landowners are entering into conservation easement not only willingly, but knowing the consequences, the benefits, the reserved rights, and the relinquished rights as well. The fees for this are typically minimal. For Upstate Forever as land trust, our fees are quite low because up in the upstate, we do tend to work with landowners that may not have a whole lot of money that they can put out of pocket into this transaction. Therefore, we are working with a variety of sources to provide some of that due diligence costs, those costs that are going to be upfront to a landowner. You can see if you're a landowner looking through some of these steps here, they can be quite expensive. Just having an appraisal done on your property. If you have 300, 500 acre farm, having a survey done on that can be very expensive. And that is a cost that is laid on the landowner itself. The title work has to be done by the landowner. We expect the landowner to pay us to do a baseline report that is recorded with the deed at the time of the conservation easement is signed. That baseline report is a snapshot of the property at the time that sort of documents from this point on, this is what the property is like. That does not mean that the property cannot change. We expect changes. The future is quite vague, but the relinquished rights are quite clear in that conservation easement. And so we try to document annually through stewardship visits the changes on that property and sort of the status of that property. There may be subordinations of mortgages, and you can see this legal review. These are some terms that most people aren't familiar with, subordination of mortgages and such. The typical folks aren't out having a survey done either, or an appraisal done on their property. But these are things that will be required of a landowner, and in order to make those things less of a barrier, cost-wise, Upstate Forever is looking for those matching funds. But the possible tax benefits are out there. You have state credits in addition to the federal deductions. The federal deductions do have a limit. There's a cap on $250 per acre, and you can only you cannot exceed $52,500 per year, but that rolls over every year, so you can continue to use the balance the next year and the next until that is used up. And if you wish, you can sell those credits on the market. You do have some of a loss there, but for some folks, it makes sense to go ahead and just sell their credits on the market and take those benefits now. That's for the state credits. And in the federal credits as well. Sorry, I kind of botched that, but you can use those interchangeably. You can sell one, but not the other. It doesn't work that way. But you do have both of those to take advantage of. One is a credit, and then one is a deduction. In looking for those funds for those easements, we have been quite creative. I don't have them all listed here, but to cover those due diligence costs, those closing costs, those stewardship requests, Oconee County is very lucky because you have your very own Oconee County Conservation Bank, which you can use in addition to the state conservation bank. We've done it before. It's been quite successful in Oconee County. We have probably more conservation easements here than any of the other counties in the upstate. Like I was talking about the RCPP funds, we have those coming in as well, which we can use in all 10 counties, but is going to be very important for protecting some of those agricultural parcels as well. There is a few other opportunities that we're looking at. Lately, we've been very creative working with utilities, especially drinking water utilities that want to protect the quality of their water. As I mentioned before, protecting the water quality, protecting land uses, in turn protects water quality and quality of life. They all go hand in hand. And right now, Upstate Forever and Oconee County are both working with the Lake Keowee Source Water Protection Team to evaluate that. I'm not saying that there's funds available at the moment, but we're working on that, and I'm hoping to make that a possibility in 2019 or 2020, where there may be funds out there to help put conservation easements on parcels that, if developed, would have a direct impact on water quality. Those are lands that could in turn be used for mitigation, that could be used for recreation, that could continue to be used for agricultural uses, or a variety of things. But those choices and those opportunities, we're trying to lay that groundwork now. So does anybody have any comments or questions? I feel like I kind of went through that rather quickly, although I think I took a lot longer than I thought.
Could you tell us the color coding on the map that showed the soils, the blue, green, yellow?
That is, yeah, I cut that off because it's like Cecil, Sandy Loam, Piedmont. I don't remember exactly, but it didn't really determine. It wasn't very useful for this conversation. But I can say that below that bold black line, I think it's the slide after this, Adam. The next one.
Yeah, I'm trying that.
Oh, okay. There's a bold line that goes right above the yellow. Y'all can probably see it in front of you. Mm-hmm. There it is. That separates the Piedmont and the foothills regions, and basically everything below that bold line is going to be your prime agricultural soils. Getting above that, you still have prime soils in those areas. I'm not saying you don't, but you have higher, you have steeper slopes, you have a little bit more of a geology in there, and so finding prime soils in those areas is not as easy to do. That little green, that large green pocket, sort of in the western portion of the county, has some more of those, where the ground in sort of like a valleys area, and it sort of lays down, and you get some more of that deposition in there. But below that bold black line, most of that is going to be, and this is where most of your agriculture is anyway. So it makes sense. You've got prime working farms here now, and there's a clear reason for that. And when you go to those hilly areas, there's a clear reason why folks in those areas have moved more to the livestock grazing. It makes more sense up there as well.
We've been talking about buffer areas around farms.
Yeah.
If a piece of property is put into a conservation easement, how does that have any effect on that? Are there any requirements for that?
That can always be an overlay. Conservation easements are always going to be subordinate to whatever regulations are in place. So if there was a setback for a property, a conservation easement would not nullify that one bit. It would be in addition to. The conservation easement is only going to restrict uses on that property. And primarily, it takes development rights away. And when you evaluate the value of a conservation easement, you're looking at the fair market value before and after the conservation easement's in place, and that is typically done based on the development potential. You could think about 300 acres near Lake Hartwell or Lake Keowee that could be a subdivision or be a high-density subdivision of some sort. And what that value would be if you put an easement on it would be decreased on that development potential. And so how that's done, how the uses, whether it's agricultural, whether it's developed, are still going to be based on whatever's in place on the county. So that doesn't really change. And I know you're looking at some of the some buffers to sort of to have between development that is adjacent to agriculture.
Right.
And that's an unfortunate similar word. You have easements in both places. It's more of a right of way or just like a setback in that case. In this, what we have here is sometimes I like to just call it a conservation agreement to alleviate some of that that confusion. Most of what I'm talking about is that agreement that just sort of takes away where the landowner is basically giving up development potential in trade for tax deductions.
Is that the primary relinquished right that you talk about in one of your slides?
Yes.
That you
Absolutely.
cannot develop it?
Right. Now, there will be, I'll use the word loosely, exceptions to that. So somebody I just looked at one recently. It was 150 acres. They want to protect it. That's what they want to do with it. It's adjacent to tributary to the Chattooga River, and they want to protect it, but they want to be able to build 3 houses. So they're not giving up 100% of those development rights. They want to be able to subdivide it into 3 parcels. They want to be able to put 3 houses on it. But 3 houses on 150 acres is very different from 300 houses on the same parcel, and what that impact would have on that adjacent water body. So that's primarily what we're doing is using this as a tool to protect our resources, and at the same time, the conservation easement process sort of helps determine where development happens. If we're protecting areas that are vital to protecting the natural resources, providing recreation corridors, maintaining agricultural integrities, what we're doing is we're sort of influencing where development does happen. And we're leaving it really up to the public to determine, because it's the landowner's choice. Nobody's saying you have to do this. We're only saying this is an option. And when it's the same when you're looking at the comprehensive planning process and you sit down and you say, well, we would like development to occur here. We would like to protect these natural resources over there. And that happened in the last comprehensive plan. It even stated in there that agricultural properties needed to be protected. That was a clear, direct statement from that previous, and I think that's going to be common in this one as well. Does that answer your question? I think I went off on a tangent there for you.
How many acres do we have now that are in Oconee County that are under conservation easements?
Yeah, I have that number in my laptop, and I apologize.
Well, just give me a word.
I really don't know, and part of the problem is Upstate Forever is not the only land trust that operates here. So you have, I know, the Nature Conservancy, Natureland Trust. There's probably a couple of other ones that probably have conservation easements in this area. But that is, I think, it does open up another question, or at least a point, is that the conservation easements are in perpetuity, and when you consider other land trusts like Natureland Trust or the Open Space Institute, which they operate as land trusts, but what they don't do is they don't put easements on the property. They only hold the property. So even though Natureland Trust, for example, owns, and I'm using them as an example, if this is all hypothetical, even if they were to own 300 acres in Oconee County, they may end up selling it in 5 years if it's not protected by an easement. That is the case which we saw for the Oconee Town addition. The Oconee County Conservation Bank recently approved funding for that, or the council actually did. The bank recommended it. And Natureland Trust owned that property and wants to put it into an easement, in which case then they can donate it to the state parks. So just because land trust owns the property doesn't mean it's protected forever. And we know that that's also true for the forests as well, which can be sold. They're not protected forever. But they are protected and managed with a long-term plan in mind. But how many acres are protected by conservation easements is a good question. I want to say Upstate Forever protects over 20,000 acres. So my guess is that we probably hold 4,000 acres in Oconee County. That's just ballpark and back of envelope. How much of that, I also have statistics that I apologize, how much of that is in recreation and how much of that is in agricultural as well, so, and forest. I think the agricultural, whether it's produce or whether it's in timber, I think that gets combined, unfortunately. But I have those statistics as well. And that's going to be the majority of our easements here.
Okay. That's on your website probably, the numbers maybe, or not?
I don't think it is.
Oh, okay.
That would be great.
If I may, I can always get in touch with Chris tomorrow and
Yeah.
email you all that information out, the statistics.
Yep. And, you know, in the past, Upstate Forever has not targeted agricultural parcels as much as we do now. With our recent strategic plan, we made a shift to help to sort of target working farms, to help promote local agriculture and working food systems as well. Good example of that is the Cragmore Farms over in Spartanburg County, District 2, school district over there, which is, they have a conservation easement on a property over there. It's the Spartanburg Foundation, actually, that owns the property. Tri-County Tech is farming it. They're using it as a classroom, an agricultural classroom out there, and then the produce is actually going to the District 2 schools, and they're feeding the kids through that. And the plan is eventually that they'll be able to feed all the schools, not just District 2. So it's going to be a growing thing. So the visions are big. The potential is huge, and what we can do with that is easily duplicated in other counties, Oconee County especially. I think there's a great opportunity here. The agricultural communities here, I think, are very cohesive. I think there's a network here, and I think there's a lot of support for that. And the conservation easement process can support it.
Anybody else comments? Very good presentation. I enjoyed the slides and all the information. Let us introduce ourselves real quick. This is Debbie Sewell and Doug Holloway, Marlene Willoughby. I'm Rex Blanton, Ed Land, Sandra Gray, Kim Alexander, and we're with the Ag Advisory Board. I'm glad to have you here.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And I look forward to doing it again sometime with a larger audience.
Well, we hope to have a larger audience on November 12th or 15th, whatever that next listening
I was
session is.
planning to be here, and I have been pulled away to work on a presentation for a conference, unfortunately. Adam says that there's going to be another one after that.
At some time to be determined in the future, yes, sir.
But yeah, it's a good audience. Those are folks that are here. If they're here speaking with you, then they're concerned about agriculture and they're concerned about their farms, and it's a great opportunity.
We did have a good turnout at the last one and hope to have better or equal at the next one.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of lively discussion.
Yeah, you had some radio advertising for it, right? I think you're gonna have a packed house.
We're gonna start our advertising pretty soon, I guess, and do a couple of radio spots.
Yeah, I'm sad I'm gonna miss that. That's unfortunate, but I look forward to the next opportunity.
We look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure to meet you all.
Come back anytime. We're open, open session.
Thank you.
So I think the next item, we will discuss the rancher and farmer listening session, version 2. First of all, I saw 2 different dates, Adam. Would you straighten me out on the date for that?
Sure, 15th.
15th.
The
That's
12th was
Thursday.
our original one. That was the original date, but it happens to be Veterans Day. So then we
That's
had to
right.
re-guess it. So to speak on that topic, on your desk, you have the invitations. You also have those infographics. Please hand them out. They're yours. Don't, I mean, I have them in my office, but they're not kind of having the same outreach that you all could have with them. So put them wherever, give them away, have them out there. So how do you all envision this next meeting going? Let's assume that we had about, 20 people here last time, give or take? And that was just word of mouth. How do you all envision this occurring? Let's say we get 40 people.
You had mentioned breaking out into smaller sessions and,
That was my thought, is that if we get a critical mass people, if we get 40 people in here, have them come one at a time to speak for 2-3 minutes, it doesn't really seem tenable. If we were to say hey, how's it going, everyone, blah, 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 let's go ahead and break up. In my mind, we break up by voting district, just because that's the most set way we have already. And I imagine districts 4 and 5, which is the southern and western parts of the county, would probably be the most represented portions, just because that's where most of the farmers are. And I could set up some easels with some paper and some markers. I'll have some questions from the consultants for the comprehensive plan, so we can piggyback into that as well, kind of integrate it as part of the comprehensive plan process for the agricultural element. And that to me seems the most effective way, because each of you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and plus the 2 at-larges would have opportunity to have one-on-one FaceTime with people perhaps you haven't met or people you already know. But this will be a very interactive process. So, and I'll float around. Does that seem like a way to do it? Does that seem like something that's tenable for y'all?
it may be a little more efficient than, like, last time was wonderful, but it took a while to get through all the discussion because a lot of good comments, but the pleasure of the board, whatever.
Do you have those questions that the consultants are talking about? Are you gonna have that for us ahead of time, or?
Yes, ma'am. So the consultants are going to come October 22, 23, and 24 for a general series of meetings. At that point in time, they'll have a list of questions. We have a bunch of little tiny focus groups, veterans, utilities, various things of that nature. I believe that we'll have at least one of them here for the farmer rancher listening session as well, to kind of pick some more minds, and maybe we get some focus groups like cattlemen or apples or bees, or just kind of pull them off to the side for a moment, either before the meeting or another point in time. Say, okay, all the beekeepers here, you're all represented. What do you all see? And that'll be part and parcel of the agricultural element of the comprehensive plan. So yeah, the way, at least in my head, envisioning it, trying to time manage this, is that the farmer rancher listening session is a major component of the comprehensive plan building process.
So I'm gonna make sure I understand. So you're saying that they may bring some questions for the farmers and ranchers, and
Yes,
vice
ma'am.
versa, the farmers and ranchers may bring to them some ideas as well.
And that's the whole idea. The questions hopefully will lead to more questions.
That's
like,
what I mean.
yeah.
I'd like to know ahead of time kind of what they're looking for, so I can tell people they're planning to come, if you can get that.
Certainly, yeah, no, and I guess what I'm thinking is that at the end of October, we'll be able to use the questions, use everyone else as the guinea pigs, and then once we kind of sort through those questions, what questions made the most sense, I'll get you all a copy of all those questions that we'll put up here by in the first week of November, end of October. So yeah, you'll get them ahead of time.
Okay.
And plus, anybody who's not able to be here would be able to, if you all
Yeah.
decide to email it or print it or what
Right,
have
that's
you.
what I was thinking some people might not be able to.
Yeah, certainly, that's a great idea.
Well, this is, I guess, is on the, you're saying, talking about these focus groups and everything, are any of these public meetings, or they're invited?
They're all public meetings, certainly, and then we're gonna have a kickoff. We try to do some of the focus group meetings just to focus on some perhaps underrepresented groups. Granted, utilities aren't underrepresented, but we have to get all the utility people in the room to get, I need to hear from Seneca Light and Water, I need to hear from Pioneer, I need to hear from certain groups specifically. So of course, they're all open door meetings, anyone's welcome to come into them, but they're gonna be focused towards, say, like a utility, or focused towards a certain,
Is that on the calendar, the county calendar?
I don't have it up on the county calendar yet.
But I mean, it will be.
The big one that you probably want to attend will be on the 23rd of the evening, and it's a Tuesday night.
That's the planning commission.
It's a planning commission meeting, but it'll be strictly for the comprehensive plan. And the way it'll work is from 6 to 7, it'll be a workshop between the planning commission and the consultants, although it'll be an open meeting. Public comment won't start until about 7, give or take, and then it'll be a workshop between the public, whoever's here, and the consultants. It won't be up on the dais. We'll have some tables spread out, a bunch of maps. It'll be an interactive workshop for the public. And we'll have several of those throughout the course of the process. So these are just first meetings, they're not last meetings.
Say the date
What's the
again.
date on that?
That'll be Tuesday, October 23rd. 6 o'clock will be starting the meeting, 7 o'clock will be the more interactive portion.
So for the farmer rancher listening session, that advertising is gonna be different than the radio minute where you advertise somebody, correct? Like we highlight someone and then the 3 things that
So,
Luann was talking about.
right, so Mr. Blanton just got back with me. So last meeting, y'all talked about having kind of a working group of coming up with some dialogue for that, and that would be the advertising. It would be kind of built in, the advertising would be built into that radio minute spot.
Would be built into the highlight.
Yeah.
And then that and the other.
Correct.
So this here would not be our script. for-
No, ma'am, that was just I had to get something printed, so if you don't love it, I'm sorry, next one we can do better.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say this would work for our advertising.
Certainly, and we could use that as well if you like. But no, that's on script. Mr. Blanton did send me something. For that one, I need at least 2 people to be involved, so perhaps either now or after the meeting, get 2 volunteers to go talk on the radio for the Ag Minute script, if that's what y'all want. Because you kind of, last meeting we said working group, and so that precludes 7 people from all having input on one thing. Rex gave me some script, unless we all want to change it, we kind of need 2 people to speak. It's a conversational back and forth that ends with come to the farmer and rancher listening session. So if 2 people, Rex is the adamant public speaker, so of course he'll want to do it.
Oh, I don't know, but the idea was, the first script was just a script that the radio station, I guess, came up with, and it was just a narrative. And I thought, well, it might be a little more interesting if we had an interactive, conversation. It's up to y'all. I don't have any preference, just trying to make it a little interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, more interested in it than blah, blah, blah.
But it does require a couple of us to go somewhere or sit in front of a recorder.
So if you all tell me that's what we decided on last meeting, we're going to keep moving towards, and then we can kind of use the same working group to, like after the meeting, just say you and let's go with it, and I'll set up the time with tomorrow. All right, so Rex is the only person who sent me stuff. Does anybody else have any input on this? Want to throw in on this? All right, That sounds
We
good.
really had a chance to talk about it.
Do you happen to have the draft I sent you somewhere?
If you just give me a moment. So since we're on, that's the radio minute stuff. Since we're on the farmer ranch listing session, is everyone all good with that format as far as that we all get together and then we split into working groups after that? And then for a time period of half hour, an hour?
I think one thing you need to do, I think, would be a good idea to do, is when they get here, let them sign up to speak.
Okay.
And let's see what you got on the sign-up sheet before you start breaking out in groups, and maybe where we can just hear it all, and we can all hear the same thing. What do you think? You know what I'm saying? Like we did before, we had a sign-up sheet that anybody want to get up and speak or tell if there's any problems or give us any advice or help them in any way. And if you get that list, because I'd like to hear all of it. I wouldn't want to be over here just listing what part of the, what I represent in District 2 or whatever. I'd like to hear what everybody in the county wants to say, or I had something to say. Because we break up in groups, we're going to be split up, right?
Yes, sir. And the way it would, I guess in my head, I guess probably didn't finish what I was saying, is that we'd break up in groups, let's just say for an hour. District 2 goes off, 3, you all break up. And then at the end of that, you all come back with a spokesperson to represent it. So District 1 would stand up and say, okay, this was our list. District 2 would come up and say, this is our list. So it wouldn't be 40 individual speakers, it would be 5 individual speakers speaking for the 40 after they all kind of broke up. And I think for a larger group, having everyone speak, it may turn into a much longer night. Because last time took about how long with 10 or 12 people? Took 3 hours?
After 3 hours.
Right. So perhaps we play it by ear.
Yeah, one thing I was gonna say, he brought to mind was, it may be that when people sign up and say what topic they wanna speak on, instead of breaking up into districts, you might be topics. Say 5 people have the same issue and they wanna consolidate it or something. Or, I don't know, but I see what he's saying too, and I want to hear the farmers myself. I don't want to. I have all the respect in the world for our people that help us or whatever, but they're the ones that we're doing this for. We hear them all the time. we hear what they do and what they can do for us all the time. But I'd like to know what the individual farmer is, what concerns them.
It's completely up to y'all.
And that kind of supports the communication component that we say suffers so badly. We don't communicate within our groups and within the entities, and so that would
That's what I
foster
was about to
communication with all,
say. All
everybody.
these meetings, it's gonna come up like the poultry and the beekeepers and all these, some of us or one of us or some people need to make sure that either the presidents of these groups get these out so that we can, that'd be
Sure.
one way of making sure that everybody saw it.
Yeah, that'd be great. And once again, these are the first meetings, these aren't the last meetings. So however you all want to do
I
it, so
thought if we
let's,
kinda get people in the groove and
Sure.
making noise, they can help us make some noise.
that's correct.
You know.
That's
And that's
correct.
the intent for us to have our appointed liaison to each group,
Right,
whether it's a rodeo group, organic,
right.
fruits, vegetables, bees. Each one of us should be a liaison to our groups.
When they sign up, do we
All
not
right,
give
the,
them
So,
the
yes.
dinner is
Do it that
before
way.
this, the, dinner at South Union.
Yeah.
Is before this.
Yeah,
and
that'd be a
somehow
good-
We need to
Any
get it
other
on the
question-
agenda there.
question
Yeah.
for that?
Does anybody have a,
If we have
I'm
four
going.
people here.
I'm going too, but
Yeah.
I think we all should go for dinner.
Oh, absolutely.
But we need to be on that agenda and invite people to the group.
Right.
Because that's where you're gonna have the biggest number of farmers together at that
Mm-hmm.
dinner than you will anywhere. Because that's where they do their awards and that kind of thing.
Right.
So for not to bring us back to the agenda here, but so how would we like to break it up next time? Because I have to be able to prepare for
I
the,
know.
for the meeting. So if we're gonna do it just the same way we did last time, is have a sign-up sheet and let people talk for an amount of time, that's fine, but we're gonna have to be on a schedule. If we say it's gonna be 3 minutes, it's 3 minutes. I'm sorry that you're midway talking about the history, but, and not to be rude, and I'm certainly capable of being, hey, time, I can do that for you all if you want me to do that. But if we have a lot of people here,
Right.
it may turn into a very long evening, which is fine, but people may not stick around for 2 hours, 3 hours. So it
Just
just
state
depends.
the limits up front, and you have a time limit, and Adam's the timekeeper, and you'll say you got whatever, 30 seconds left or a minute left, and give them 2 or 3 or 4 minutes, whatever we decide, and then cut it off. We let them go last time, and they,
And I think it depends on how many's here and and I think if they're speaking on the same topic, Debbie has a very valid point. They need to put that topic up there, and if we have 5 people show up and they're gonna talk about agritourism, and they're all on agritourism, then they all get grouped together, and we somehow address that as a whole, and then they can be a split out or something. But we are here for them, so we do need to listen to them. But maybe stick to if we have a lot like last time, a 2-minute time limit, and then say we're going here, and then you can express it more after an hour and just have to cut it off. I mean,
I agree. I think that's that grouping by topics you mentioned.
I like that.
So I like that.
so, because you're gonna have to control it somehow. And at the end of the day, we've got to get a comprehensive plan. We've also got to listen to our constituents, and we've got to have a happy meeting.
They can consolidate their comments and have one group spokesperson perhaps, if, we guide them that way. Maybe they could come up with a spokesperson and that person do the talking, and
They wouldn't have any time beforehand to
Yeah,
kind of
they-
meet, and since we don't have a list of questions. And once again, I'm just trying to make this as, it seems very, and of course, if that's the way you want to do it, that's fine. It's them talking to you and you talk to them. So if we have, let's say, 2 minutes for them to speak, how long do you all have to question them and speak back? Because that's really kind of what no one really rambled on for a long time, by the way, but somebody would say something, and then somebody would question them, and somebody would say something, and someone would question them, and it kind of kept rolling on. And I agree, we should all hear the farmers, but we don't want them to get meeting fatigue, where I didn't realize how often you all meet in like this time of year. I didn't realize like this was like, hey, let's all get together in night meeting. I mean, meeting months. So
limit it to a couple of comments or questions maybe.
Or maybe we just listen like county council does and we don't respond back. I mean, whenever they have public comment. Sorry, I'm just saying
They
their
respond at the
format.
end. Their
They
format.
respond
Well,
at
that's what I was
the
gonna
end,
say.
and that's what I'm saying. I meant use their format. I misspoke in how I stated that. I was not being, I meant use their format. It seems to work for them.
right.
That we listen to everybody, we make our notes, we are attentive. Everybody gets to speak if you keep them at 2 minutes. But then when we respond back, we don't get but maybe a maximum of 5 minutes or something. Somehow cut us off too, to where we can break out in groups. Or
So,
somehow.
all right, so now we're talking about breaking out in groups again. So just so I can get my head around this, we have,
Well, I mean, if you don't want to, we don't have to, but you kept saying we needed to for the comprehensive plans. I'm just trying to get everything.
You might want to get closer to your microphone, because might be some people at home.
Now, if I say something like I did a while ago, I don't want to be close to the
Is there a
microphone.
2-minute delay there?
But when they come in, as they sign up, we can tell them, the format is if y'all have a similar topic, you get in a small group, discuss it 5 minutes and have a spokesperson, and we'll limit our response to a minute or 2 and keep it moving.
And before this thing starts, you need to delegate on topics, period, of what our goal is, the comprehensive plan, of what we want in our near future for our, what's going on in the county.
so what would you like for me to delegate there?
We want to keep everybody on the same, going in the right direction.
The purpose of the meeting and the
Yes.
goals,
There you go.
right?
Do you think maybe we
the
could
boss is gonna
advertise
do.
that?
Okay.
I think you're
That's
gonna
his
have to advertise
responsibility.
that.
You keep them
Purpose of the
going.
Or
meeting.
can we advertise that? Maybe that's
can
the
advertise
next,
that, yeah.
maybe that's the next question that I should
We
ask.
can't, yes, we can advertise.
If you advertise it up front, instead of just saying farmer rancher listening session, open to whatever, farmer rancher listening session as a component to, as a starting point for the comprehensive plan for agriculture in Oconee County, so that they understand what they're coming for.
Yeah.
If they have a hot button issue that they want to talk about prior to that, I don't think, and they come, I think we should hear them, that's what we're here for.
Right.
But our goal, our overall objective is to get some groundwork for the 2019 comprehension plan.
All right, all in favor of having Ms. Alexander on the radio minute, say aye.
Well, it says on the card, how do you see agriculture growing? Which, by the way, all the board members have taken the survey, right?
I did.
One
Y'all all
did.
done the ag survey for Adam?
I sent it out a while ago. I'll resend it.
Sir?
One person did, yes, sir.
Well, all the board members need to take that
They
survey.
did it as a group. I felt the group essence on that one. yeah.
And anyway, but
So for the listening session, what's going to be our format on this?
Why don't we do, well, we'll go back to like the way they do, we have a public comment that maybe is not on topic, but then have the topic so that people can sign up under a specific topic. And then if there's a few outliers, then maybe have them.
So what should be the topic? So the comp plan questions are fairly
Questions
vague.
that
It's
they might
like,
ask.
where do you see ag going? Kind of thing. Like they're not like how is
not
your
gonna come
breed
in.
of cattle doing with the ongoing H1N1 viruses? They're much broader questions than that. And
Okay.
I guess that was my thing. So hopefully we get a great turnout. I just want to make sure that at this point the logistics of it are pretty buttoned up as far as what we're going to do when people show up here. So last time we had 20 just with word of mouth. Hopefully we get a few more than that. From what I gather, some of you want to have say 2 minutes talking, you all don't respond. So if we have 20 people, that's 40 minutes, people talking. And then you all will have time to assemble notes and respond to a degree. And then after that, would you all like to break them up? Is that what you're going with? Or we're just gonna say thanks for coming? Or what do we want to do from there? What's the theory?
Depends on what they
I know
say.
you never know. See, it's still so open, it's
I
hard
don't think
to-
you'll have time.
I think
Right.
we're gonna
I don't think you
lose
have time to
people
do both.
after
You
an
have to do
hour.
Maybe, take note of like the topics and then maybe that in the future we have something that's on that particular topic.
Did-
Yeah.
Did last time, I was not here because I was in New Hampshire, the listening session, did we have a sign-in with emails, names, numbers, where you can contact these farmers that show up?
Some gave some email addresses and some phone numbers, but not a whole lot of people were wanting to give me their contact
so-
information.
So they didn't want to share that information, so we
Not
can contact them in the future.
Correct.
we pretty much know who they are though, and I've got most of their contacts anyway, because we know them, so.
The reason I was asking if you had a listening session and then you had groups and you wanted to contact them and they signed up for the beekeepers or cattlemen, whatever it is, then if, or either the ones in our district, if you want to separate that way, just separate what district in, then each one of us could contact our guests. Can we have a listening session? Can we?
Yeah, you can do anything without quorum. Yeah, you all want
Yes.
we can set that up.
So, then you could break it up that way to have small groups later on somehow. But I don't think you'll have time to do both.
Adam, we can also speed it up a little bit. If you've got any other thing you need to submit it in writing to you and then get back to us
Gotcha.
would that be good?
Yeah,
To add that part on, and that way we can speed this up. If we see we're gonna have 40 people speaking, we're gonna have to get on a time schedule to get out, or we're gonna be home at midnight. If we do it the other way, and that's not what we're here for, but we wanna listen to each one of them. I'd love to be able to listen to everybody, and their comments, and I like the listening part, which is what it is, Farm and Rancher listening session. And I think that's what we're here for, to hear what they have to say, if they've got any topics or issues. And, then we can respond back, maybe at a later date or whatever, on as we go through and do our research on whatever we need to do before we respond back. But I think if they had any other comments, if there's anybody else that had any other comments, your time limit's up, but you can submit it in writing, and then we could analyze that.
Okay.
What do you think?
That's completely up to you.
And is there a way, I think that's a great idea, is there a way to have, I understand they're vague, but is there a way to have those questions answered for the consultants that evening? Is there a way to have some of that addressed? Is there a way to have that word out before? Is there a way? obviously the survey's not working, but is there a way to do something there?
Certainly, I can print them up and hand them out. At that point, I can ask, like, hey, while you're waiting to speak, could you go ahead and just fill these out? I'm also going to I ordered a big, like, 3x4 cork board. I'm going to print out a map of the county and let people put pins in it where their farms are. I can also put up some of the easels and kind of put some questions up there and let people, while they're milling around, answer some questions by hand of that nature. So, okay, so we're going to do it as the talk, listen, and then at the end, y'all are going to respond. That's the way we're going to do this, right? Just so we're all on the same page here. Okay?
I agree with it.
I'm good.
All right, that's fine with me. All right.
We ready to move to number 6, protection of lands?
All right, so the Ag Advisory Board recommended a couple months ago to send something regarding buffers, to recommend buffers around agricultural lands to Planning and Economic Development. Planning and Economic Development sent it to Planning Commission. At the last Planning Commission meeting, Ms. Sewell, Dr. Gray, Dr. Drake, Tim Donald came and spoke to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission had some questions. They weren't really sure of it. I provided no information to Planning Commission. I figured let the farmers speak for the farmers. And they did, and Planning Commission went, well, talk to us some more, farmers. So what I provided was a little handout to you that basically is questions that I'm kind of parsing out some details from Planning Commission, and they asked, say, hey, can Ag Board give us a little more, give us a starting point, give us a jumping off point. So the last meeting with Planning Commission was just a conversation. We just talked about our ideas, and some of the issues. Now, when Dr. Drake spoke, because he does chemicals, pesticides, things of that nature, his recommendation was 100 feet to 150 feet for drift from farms to subdivisions and from homes to for farms, especially for organic. Mr. Donald has much grander ideas of having the adjacent properties meet whatever setbacks you have. So you have a poultry house. You have a 1,000-foot setback from a dwelling. Mr. Donald's thoughts were, let's go 1,000 feet for them as well. It's just, if it's good for the goose, good for the gander, right?
Yes.
That's my poultry metaphor there. I hope it worked well.
Yep.
Thank you. I spent a lot of time on it. So I guess the first question, working linearly in a linear fashion, is the buffer recommended by the Ag Board is intended to what? And basically, if you all can help me answer this little sheet tonight, I'll turn it into something workable for the Planning Commission to look at. And if you all don't think we can work on this tonight, as long as you promise to get to me by Friday, we can certainly do that as well. The things I have underlined here are kind of circle or circle all. So where's my mouse at? There we go. The issues that have led the Ag Board to recommending this buffer are, and these ones underlined here are, so AD is ag, ARD is ag rural, TRD is traditional rural development. I believe Mr. Lane, you're zoned TRD, is that correct? Yes. You up there? Ms. Alexander, are you ag? Are you zoned ag? Next time. So the ag lands. So those are your options. These numbers right here are numbers for you all to kind of chew on and think as far as the setback. If you don't want to provide an exact number at this point in time, we don't have to. This isn't going to go into final form. This is going to be more, once again, a letter to Planning Commission. Hey, the Ag Board spoke about this. These are our thoughts. Once again, this is a very touchy subject. We're impeding on people's private property rights on the other side of the property line. And so us taking it slow and really kind of thinking it through and gaining some ideas are important. And what this buffer will stop. Will it stop all development? Will it stop building dwelling units? Will it stop other things? And how the buffer should be. Should it be left natural? Should it be however they want to, just as a horizontal distance? Should it be planted in conifers and deciduous plants and other things? These are just things for you all to think about. So if we want to try to answer any of these tonight, or would you all get these back to me?
I like what the comment that they'd like for the buffer burden to be more fairly shared by the farmer and the developer, and maybe not go as far as Tim was saying, 1,000 feet. That'd be too much. And the chairman said that we want to protect the property rights of the other folks, of everybody. So,
So the Right to Farm Act, or I'm sorry, the Farm Bill, gives the counties the right to say, you can farm here, you can't farm here, but specifically takes away the right from us to tell the farmer how to farm. So I don't know that we can impose anything onto a farmer. We can say, you can have a farm here, but we can't tell a poultry house they have to be set back 500 feet.
no,
But that's strictly in DHEC's hands.
DHEC's already done that, so.
Right.
So these numbers, recommended numbers, 25, 50, et cetera, that's on the adjacent property.
That would be on the adjacent property, yes,
And
ma'am.
so wouldn't that vary according to the type of farm that it is?
If that's the way you all would like to go, that's completely up to you all to decide. I just put these numbers out starting at 25 and going up in increments because
Okay.
that just seemed a conversational topic. They're not
It'd
any
be too
sort of,
specific, wouldn't it?
Item one is a lake setback.
25 feet.
it's 25 feet measured from 800. That's a vegetative buffer that maintains trees essentially and some development. Yes.
As far as water quality, I think it's like 50 feet.
For DHEC has a 50, so depending on when the subdivision was platted, DHEC has a 50 or 75-foot setback for drainage fields, depending on next to water bodies. So the newer ones are 75 feet setback of your last septic field tube to a water body.
Best management practice of forestry operations, I think, is like 50 feet from a stream management zone for water protection. It may be 50 feet either side. I'm a little rusty on that, but it's significant. And Mr. Donald mentioned 150 feet is required by the CAMBA label. So, 100 feet may not be enough, 400 may be too much,
Have to start somewhere.
somewhere in the middle.
It's got,
I have a question, Adam.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this just for these particular zones? Why can't it be for any ag?
Because I have no way of saying it's ag. So, I will, next meeting, I will show you actually, no, I may be here. So, what is ag? So, state defines ag as anything over $1,000 in sales. However, where's my email? Oh, did my email come off here? No. Hold on here. I got our current land use map. And things that are... So everything in green. So this is a preliminary lot. This is very broad. So everything there. Oh. Nothing. Okay, maybe that works.
Green is agricultural.
Yeah, so
yellow,
everything green there is
commercial.
taxed ag land. Are there that many farms in Oconee County?
no.
No.
No. So.
All the people that own over 5 acres.
And even then some, like if I say, oh, I'm growing snails and I sell over $1,000 of them on an acre, then it's ag. So the reason why, to me, it has to be zoned is because I have no ability to enforce it otherwise.
Okay, well, but I think though there's instances where somebody couldn't zone their land if they wanted to. There's not enough adjoining land.
And that, of
Okay,
course, is.
And they
is
need
true.
to be protected. If they've been there 20 years with their snail farm,
Mhm.
and they've got 15 acres or what is it, 25 now you can zone?
50, from control-free district to anything else is 50
50.
acres.
Okay, so if you had 49 acres of snail growing operation, and you want to make sure that your neighbor's not going to move in a big subdivision, tiny houses, and they're afraid the snails are going to come over.
Mhm.
So that person, I think, needs some sort of buffer, by the new person. So that, to me, I mean, I don't really know why you couldn't say that.
Because I can't say whether, I can't on paper say you're a farm. I can't, I don't know a way. If there's a way, I'm not against it. I just know that the logical way for me to go about writing an ordinance regarding this will be, it is zoned a certain way, because we can't use the tax data as a land use.
It's a commercial farm?
Use your microphone, Debbie.
Oh, and it's a commercial farming operation, if they sell.
We don't require business licenses in the county.
No, I'm not, I mean, I'm questioning, I mean.
No, I'm
just-
happy to
thinking
answer
about
them.
it
I
because
think it's a good
I
idea.
wanna know, cause I'm thinking about a particular farm that's 15 acres
I know, yeah.
that, has a development that's moving in next to it, and they're already complaining before the first stick-built house is there. Okay, how can we protect that person?
Protect the farmer
Yes,
from,
from the development.
The Right to Farm Act. does that-
the law's already there. That he can farm that land with a right to farm, I mean, am I not saying that right?
Yeah.
The law's already in place that protects that farmer. He can farm that land and grow snails all he wants to. If the whole, if you the first question, what's the buffer recommend for Agricultural Advisory Board is intended to stop litigation. I mean, if you look at the big picture, it's to stop anybody from trying to stop you.
I think it's, and like Tim said, to stop encroachment, for one thing.
And these are all viable options. So to go back to Ms. Sewell's question of why only zoned areas, it's because right now, as of today, I don't have any other way of writing an ordinance to say next to a farm, because what's a farm?
Yeah.
Well, what if
Too
you,
much
what if
green
we
up there
come up
to
with that?
define that.
Right, and that's fine, and I'm completely fine on working on it.
Okay,
And right
okay.
now, this isn't gonna be final form to planning commission, this
Okay.
is simply a letter to them.
I'm just asking, because I want to know how to
No,
think
and it's,
about it.
if I know there's tons of poultry farms out there that are not zoned. And I mean, poultry's our number 2, maybe number 1 in the state, and we need to be able to do about that. But for the sake of kind of getting a foot in the door and starting the process, if we start with zoned, at least then we can say, oh, someone else in Ohio used some other language, because I'm not done looking at it. So right now, to answer that question, zoned, it's the only way I know how to do it at this moment.
But if we came up with a really cool idea, we could.
Yeah.
Well, you still got,
Okay.
you still got the state laws and the Right to Farm Act.
I understand that.
That that's gonna come in there because, it already has been an issue with the county anyway. You know, once upon a time, the Right to Farm Act kinda put everything in order. So we gotta go by the state laws, and I'm not sure what the state laws are.
Well, according to
Regarding-
Tim, they're trying to get it to where it's, like he said, you have to mirror your neighbor.
Well, Tim is pushing it through the Farm Bureau, you know,
Okay.
and then they will lobbyist for it in the State House, but,
Right.
you know, that process is gonna be a while,
Long time.
you know?
That's
It's-
correct.
They don't do anything quick,
Now, of course.
so we've gotta look at that. I think we need to, you know, like these setbacks and all, like Rick says here, you know, 1,000 feet's just, that's not good there. I mean, you can get into several acres right there.
But we have to
1,000
do it.
feet.
But we have to do it.
Yeah, you have to do it, but you know that up front before you ever start. That was already done. When you get in a chicken house, you know, if you wanna put it in a chicken house, you gotta get back 1,000 feet.
Back in '83 it wasn't.
Yeah,
No, and
well,
when they change it
No.
next year, it won't
But
be
before
either.
83, you
It
didn't have to set
wasn't,
it back. You
And
didn't have
it
to,
wasn't also, I had to put on the telephone pole over there what I'm going to do to build another one, and my neighbors can tell me whether I can or not.
they can have comment about it.
No, they can stop it.
Yeah, they do.
So this is really interesting, because this is
Oh, don't
mirroring
get
the
me
same
up here,
conversation the
don't
planning
do this.
commission had.
I don't know.
yeah.
Exactly.
But, you know, I think what we're trying to do
State,
here,
that's state law, not county law,
Still.
that's state law.
I think what we're trying to do here is, you know, we penalize, you know, they said it at the meeting, farmers been penalized a long time.
Yep.
With the setbacks that they've got on them, and nobody else has any setbacks. You know, and I don't think we wanna say the setbacks to go just to the residential or commercial coming in. We just wanna kinda get a happy median here, to where they don't have to sit back. If you've got a business coming in, and the farmer, when that business is built, he's gotta take more of his land. What we wanna do is say, okay, y'all move over just a little bit if you wanna come in.
Yes.
So we gotta get a happy median.
Yep.
And, you know, and you know, and 150 feet, you know, 150 feet is not bad, I think. You know, if you got 150 feet and they come in, even though the farmer may have to move over a little bit, he's not gotta move over that 154 more feet more. What I'm thinking,
Yeah.
okay? So,
But, you know, to answer the first question, what's the purpose of the buffer?
Make good neighbors.
Protect farmers, stop encroachment, interference with farming and litigation.
yeah.
Encroachment.
And protect the landowner that joins the farm.
Protect the farmer
I
and
think
protect
it's,
all the
it's
landowners.
stop conflict too
It's
between
gonna
the
protect
farmer
them,
and
it's
the
gonna help them
landowner.
if they may not think it will, but if they're a little bit further away, it's gonna help them.
Yeah.
Big
I kinda agree.
conflict.
And like you said, it's got to be under the zoning, where it's traditional rural or agriculture. That's the only way that you're gonna be able to control this, so it's gotta be put into those zoning, and the zoning, rules and regulations too. That's what you're saying, right, Adam?
Yes, ma'am. Or yes, sir. I'm sorry. I see Ms. Sewell shaking her head about that. At the moment, since we don't have business licenses, we don't keep track of how the farm's income comes in. I can't use tax information to
Right.
kind of bounce off a land use law. So as of right now, this moment, it's zoning is the only thing I can. Now, to answer Ms. Sewell's question about what about tiny lots or lots that aren't possibly zoned, you can go to council and request your lot be zoned. That's not the preferred
Under the-
method.
Okay, under that.
Well-
So even though they changed it, and I don't think a lot of people realize they've changed it to 50
Mhm.
acres
From 200, correct.
from 200, I think that's one of the communication things that maybe we can get out in the next Farmer Rancher
Sure.
listening session.
Certainly.
And then you're saying though that even if you don't qualify in that category, because that just happened last year, if I'm not mistaken,
So let me show you
you
what
can go to
council.
council and request them to zone a piece of property?
Yeah, so council can it's called top-down zoning, and it's super unpopular throughout the United States because it's government coming in and saying, so for instance, I believe, and I don't know how the industrial parks got zoned industrial, but I'm fairly certain that was the way it got done, is that Golden Corner and Highway 11 said, government-owned, we're gonna top-down zone this property, but those are the industrial parks. It's good sense, no one lives there, it was government-owned. So let's just see, let me show you the language here. That's not good.
We discussed the soil types as how important, to judge the land, that we're losing a lot of valuable land and farmland and arable soil and all that. And so I think we need to kind of latch onto that to help say this is valuable land. It needs to be protected.
Well, another thing,
That's not
another
zoning.
thing too, what percentage of your farms are zoned agriculture?
Really?
So currently, there's only about 500
Right.
there's only about 200 parcels that are zoned. Surrounding them, there's about 500 other parcels that average about 18 acres each. So the 200 or so that are zoned are surrounded by farmland, they just happen to be zoned.
But how much is zoned traditional rural, Adam?
I don't
A
have
lot
that
of your
information.
farms are under traditional rural.
That's what.
I don't have that off the top of my head, but I can certainly get all that data. Amendments and rezonings.
So they done it that way. I mean, a lot of them went with traditional rural because there was some little things in the agriculture they didn't like. Because if you had a home in agriculture, it's gotta be cut out of that. Right?
Traditional rural?
Residential.
Traditional rural, you can have houses on it.
You can, but not in ag.
So in ag, you can, but there's densities, I believe.
Right.
I'll look it up, I think it's 1 per acre.
Yep.
And that's really the density issues that come with it, is that, yeah, you can sell your house, but if a purchaser comes and buys it, they can only put in 1 unit per acre.
That's right. And that was one of the reasons a lot of the farmers went with traditional rural.
And there's
One
some
of the
other,
reasons.
there's some other reasons too.
Oh, yeah,
like
that's
the
just one.
roadside stands and different things like that, you can't.
So right here, this is the code ordinances here. So method 2, which is what Ms. Alexander was talking about, is small area rezoning. It says any property owner or group of property owners can get together at least 50 acres and petition the county for initial rezoning. What initial rezoning is 85% of the county is control-free district. If you want to go from control-free district to anything else, ag, TRD, industrial, you have to have at least 50 acres. And 100% of the owners sign off on it. So that's one method for our conversation's sake, of doing that. The other method is county-initiated. So this is called top-down rezoning. The county can initiate it. So for instance, I'm assuming, and I don't know this to be fact, but it makes good sense, is that for Golden Corner and for the other one, the Highway 11 one, that we top-down rezoned it. So I imagine you could petition your council member to do that. It's not guaranteed, and it's not at all without its potholes or what have you. But for most part, we want everyone to go through citizen-initiated.
Yep.
It should come from the bottom up, not the top down. So, that being said, we have this sheet here. Do you all want some time to kind of sit and kind of do it by yourselves, or do you want to give it to me tonight?
I got number two, and tell me if you agree or disagree. The other areas of the country are losing very valuable land to development, and farmers are being squeezed out, like Mr. Donald said. That's why the buffers have come up. Wouldn't you say?
One reason.
Yep, I agree.
Sounds good.
I think the natural buffer planted according to whatever the farmer or the landowner wants, Dr. Drake suggested, a buffer of timber or natural plants, that's good enough. So all we have to do is just come up with a distance, and like Doug mentioned, 150, 200 feet.
I agree with 150 feet myself.
I mean, that's a
I think
start.
it's
This,
excessive.
this all can all be changed at a later date.
Oh, yeah, because we're not right, so you can even
It's
give
just,
3 different
you know,
distances.
and
We
I
can give
think-
7 different distances right now. We don't necessarily have to have consensus. We
Yeah.
do have to have a conversation.
Okay.
So, Mr. Lance said 150 feet, we can bring that to them. We want to say more, we want to say less.
And the idea wasn't that the property developer has to have equal to that. He just needs to share some portion of that,
So
Make
this
it,
is all going on the other person's
No, this is
property.
all going on the other
This is
person's.
all 100%
all
on the other
this-
person's property. I can't tell a farmer how to farm,
See, right now, you
Right.
can build within 10 feet of the property line, is that right?
give or take, yeah.
5 or 10 feet to the property line, fence can be right on the property line. So now we're gonna push that building back to 150 feet, still build his fence right on the property line. But that pushes them back to if there's any drift or, any complaints, that kind of mitigates some of those complaints, because the whole issue is litigation. I can tell you right now.
And this is all for establishing anything new. It's not for what's already grandfathered there. Right.
Oh, yes,
And-
new
and
developments.
one of the
Development.
One of the big components of that was, that once it's established, then the person moving in has to say, okay, I recognize there's a poultry farm here or whatever, and I'm agreeing to that, and I know I'm moving into his neighborhood, and I'm not gonna complain about it. So they,
Well, anyway, but-
was part of the discussion, that they understand and agree and waiver, whatever, to complain about it.
We can certainly recommend something like that independent of this. The reason why I think 100 or 150 feet works well is because it has a fact behind it. 25 feet, 50 feet, I don't know if it does. 1,000 feet, I don't know if it does. I know that we have the state entomologist told us that most labels are 100 to 150 feet. That's a finding of fact that we can say, we're not just making this stuff up. We're keeping land in ag. We're going to help keep the organic farms organic. We're going to help keep the beehives away from things. So I like those numbers because they do have some fact behind them. Do they help the poultry farmers by 900 or 850 feet?
Yep.
It's a little bit. I know it's not a great concession, but so any number that we're going to provide has to come out of finding of fact. The other issue I think that we should definitely bring up is that why is it 1,000 feet for a poultry house or a confined animal feedlot? Other than DHEC said so.
Well, there,
Odor complaints, perhaps.
I think a lot of it's a whole lot of issues. You've got your, the water issues, you've got, insect issues, that kind of thing. And a lot of it came from complaints. I just know from working in the poultry industry too. A lot of it's DHEC. I mean, they do say what they. And one thing that hasn't been said is DHEC could change those rules next month. They can make it 1,500 feet. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about that too. They change all the time. Marlene can tell you.
Well, I think
Something
we've
comes
discussed
up,
that one pretty well. Can we move on to the radio minute?
So as long as you all tell me that you're going to get this back to me by the end of the week.
That's
you-
your
You can
homework.
take a picture of it and text it to me. You can fill it out now, or you can get it to me by the end of the day. Can you all, would that be a possibility?
It was on the table when we got here.
Yeah, I definitely handed you this.
Stacked in
It's
the
printouts on your table. So if you think it'd be possible for everyone to get this to me by the end of the week or whenever, that'd be great. And take your time on it. And once again, this won't be a final document when it goes to planning commission, and I promise we'll see it again. So
Do you have the radio minute draft?
I can
So they
certainly
can
bring
see it, or
that
can
up.
we share it, or just decide how we're gonna do it? So would y'all rather have a narrative, let the radio DJ read something, or would you like a little back and forth discussion?
Are we still gonna go with 3 spots?
Three.
Say 3 spots, 3 different ones?
So we have, so, all right, yes, first thing, is this will be a radio minute. We talked about last time that to focus the radio minutes on something. Mr. Hallfield brought up the listening session that we're gonna have. So these are gonna be focused, directed towards that. They may be informational, but they will be focused towards that November 15th date. So that being said, Mr. Blanton had come up, we had decided that we're gonna have a working group come up with it. So Mr. Blanton came up with something here.
I'm good with either way. Y'all just, let's decide and move.
What are you asking?
What format you would like the radio minutes to be? Y'all have copies of them?
Yeah.
That's the conversational type. By the way, these numbers I've updated the best I can. I've talked to several economists and gotten input on the forestry numbers and the overall agricultural numbers. I don't know where those came from, the 129, 139, but basically we figure about a $302.5 million industry per year in Oconee. It's not on there. I didn't come up with that one.
So the Rex came up with this, and we can run with this, but we are running out of time in order to fill up our space, to get the actual space for it. All honesty, I should have it done by last Friday, but they worked with us because we got some cash. So if we're good to go with this, it'd be 2 people would have to speak, and then we would record this, and then I would have to get them in a studio at a certain point in the relatively near future. So if you want to let Mr. Blanton keep on keeping on with this, and we can just call some people, or if anybody wants to be involved with it, we can certainly take that, or we can kind of work on this as a group, which is.
I think this is good to get the first one off and go, and then the next one, because you're gonna run more than one, and then the next one can be what Mr. Blanton said, as far as whoever it was you were
This one be
highlighting.
played.
Yeah,
Multiple
we're not
times.
going to have like a bunch of different ads. It'll be
This
one
one
ad.
will be played over and over.
Oh, this one's
Probably,
over, well,
I
this
think it was
one's fine.
twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon.
Yeah.
For 2 to 3 weeks.
Then I'd say let's do it, if that's, I mean, this looks fine. That's what Rick's,
You notice, okay, that's number 2 ad. The number 1 ad's the same thing. It's just read by one person. So I don't care either way. Can you scroll down, Adam? It's got put in the plug for supporting the farmers market and local agriculture.
whichever one's the easiest for you to get done. Do you
That's-
need a motion on the on the floor? or-
All I need is a couple willing participants or a willing participant, and I can do all the arrangements thereof.
I just don't have, the time is be the deal for me.
And this won't be the last one. We have money for advertising, so if this goes
Okay.
well, we could certainly, and you
I
want
don't
to,
mind talk with you about this, between us on there.
Well, let's just go with to make it quick, just go with the narrative number 1 first, and
Okay.
then come back, do that one at another time. The information's the same on either one,
Okay.
and we can just tailor that one
All right,
differently next time. So, want to do that? This is quicker.
sounds good.
That's good, let's go with it.
All right, so, y'all good with that? Just do the narrative portion. You want to see it? It's the same thing, it's just read by one person. Okay, while they do that, what's the next item?
rural infrastructure, you'd asked me to put this on here, and I can't speak with any authority on, I believe there was some mention of utilities that you wanted to put on the agenda, sir?
Rural infrastructure.
The sewer system, sewer south, is what you would ask me to put on.
Okay, I've lost my place. What's the question? Okay, rural infrastructure. Go ahead. What we got there? We go,
You asked me to put this on here, sir. I'm
Rural
not an
infrastructure.
expert in, you had mentioned something about the Soil and Water Conservation District or some other entity wanting us to support some language regarding potential sewer in the county.
I think this is already
I think it was, he was talking about the
The sewer.
sewage down in the south end of the county down at Fair Play. I think that's already been passed.
What was the result?
Yes.
Passed.
Thing of it is, who's
It was
running it?
Who's running
That's
it?
the problem.
Who's running it?
Oconee County.
I can't speak with any authority on this subject. Honestly, I was asking around today in a hurry. I wasn't around when this started. If anybody can, I know it's
What-
about a sewer line, yeah.
Yeah, they'd already spent about, the county had already spent about $10 million running it most of the way down there. The city of Seneca was talking about taking over the sewage system from there on down, but I think the county, the way it passed, is they'll fund the rest of the installation, because the sewage was already down to the Commerce Park. And so they'll fund to extend it to wherever it was going down there. That's the gist of what I understand.
Okay, well, that's good,
But
that's
it
good.
passed, the county passed it, so there's no
So
comment.
as long as the county or the the sewer commission's running it,
Yeah, that's it.
we're good.
Versus,
That's the-
I don't know that we have, the Oconee County has a joint regional, or there's a joint regional sewer authority, but Oconee County doesn't have a sewer department.
Yeah, it's the sewage authority, which is a separate entity.
Which is who should run it,
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, that's what they're
I think,
established
I
for.
think the debate was whether we agreed on it being ran down there or just not being ran down there.
So
Because,
that's county meeting now.
because it's
All in
gonna,
executive
with the
session,
sewage
so-
system, it's gonna promote development of industry and
all in
manufacturing.
executive session, so I don't know
what we
what
like
was
down there.
decided.
It's done deal, said them.
Okay, all right, well, it's done deal, thanks for the update. All right, so ex officio member, I think it should be someone from the extension office.
So on your desk is a copy of the language that I kind of edited and went before council, and it's already voted on, I just wanted to provide that to you. The ex officio member will be an eighth member, there'll be a non-voting member, they won't count towards quorum if you all show up here. They don't have to live in this county, so Mr. Howard, he lived in Spartanburg, I think, or wherever he lived and kept driving over here. So it's set up for you all to recommend whomever it is you want to. Now, it'll be based upon, council could, without your recommendation, of course, assign someone. But I doubt that'll happen, just as I'm not speaking for council in any way, shape, or form, just saying that they'll probably await your recommendation. So right now, we have one person has filled out the form, the application form, although they do not need to fill out an application form in order to be recommended. So at this point in time, there is a spot open, and you all would have to have a motion and a vote to recommend someone. At this point in time, if you all want to just discuss it, who it could be, or if you all are ready to motion and vote on it, it should be a conversation and a motion and a vote. If that's what you want to do at this point in time, of course, you're not required to. With the holidays coming up, maybe you want to wait till January, maybe you want to do it now. It's up to you all.
I think we ought to go ahead and fill it as quick as possible. And probably should be someone with these characteristics here. And we talked,
I agree with Mr. Blanton that I would concur that it needs to be somebody from Clemson Extension, because that's the tie to everything going on in agriculture in the state of South Carolina.
I kind of I agree with that.
It's the
I
largest-
especially don't think it needs to be anybody from Oconee County.
it's the largest research and education component, and it's next door, and it makes sense to partner with them. Plus, they have a lot of programs that we can help each other with. So, they're a huge contributor, and they're right next door, so.
I think
took
somebody
Miss-
from the university, maybe not somebody from the local extension office would be better, like we have with Danny.
No, I didn't say from Oconee
Obvious-
County Extension, that's Clemson Extension as a whole, it could be Clemson, that doesn't
Or
matter
it
to me.
could be somebody from sustainable agriculture.
You know,
I have somebody in mind from sustainable agriculture.
we got Mr. Howard by recommendation of the state extension leader, and we could ask him for a recommendation.
Sure.
Who took Mr. Howard's place? That was going to be my
Hasn't been
question.
filled yet.
Well, the other thing, it's gonna have to be somebody that's gonna be convenient to come to the meeting. He was an unusual individual that drove almost all the way from Spartanburg to come to this meeting. I don't think you're gonna find somebody that's quite as dedicated as Mr. Danny Howard to do that, because I probably wouldn't drive all the way to Spartanburg for a meeting, would you, Mr. Doug, too many times?
Yeah, that's,
Not regularly.
So, somebody in the local area, doesn't have to be from Oconee County, but through Clemson Extension Agency.
And I agree with that. I would also, just like for what it's worth, is I see that we have Oconee County Soil and Water Conservation District Commissioner or designee listed here as well, and I have heard that soil and water come up several times. And, you know, Heather is a wealth of knowledge in what she can do for us, and there has been a lot of times I have heard her office, not her name per se, but her office come up as recommendations for someone for us to talk to about different things. So I personally would like for us to explore that. I'm not saying it has to be, but I think as many times as I have heard her office come up, I think she would be one that would be kind of like Mr. Howard. She's been doing it a long time and a wealth of knowledge.
There again, I think you gotta think about their time too.
And I agree.
And
She
they
would
can
have
come
to-
at any time. We could invite her to come and, you know, if we had an issue. I think we need to, this planning stuff that we're talking about, land use thing is important, and there's not as many people. You know, we have people that can advise us on plants or fruit or whatever. They're readily available. They can come at any time. But somebody like Danny has a lot of been around long enough to know and has knowledge in different areas is what we need to look for.
I will agree. I mean, that was just a suggestion.
All right, well, let's think about that. Those are good suggestions, and let's table that, shall we?
You have to motion and vote table it, sir.
Motion to table.
Second.
All those in favor?
And if you do have anyone that you think of that you'd like for me to reach out to, send an application to, please let me know in the future as well. Also, Mr. Blanton, I believe we skipped over number 7.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thank thank Adam for setting it up, and Debbie and all those that hauled bales of hay and corn stalks and everything and all the decorations. It was really attractive, and we talked to a lot of people, I think more on Friday than Saturday, whatever reason, but it was a great setup Adam did, and thanks for everybody that volunteered and came and spoke to people. We tried to keep track of who we talked to. I got a good, fair contact list from that and learned some people, met some new people, so we can invite them to the next session. We were not on the main whatever, so we were off to the side a little bit, which was more pleasant, but probably didn't get as much foot traffic as the main, what do you call it, the avenue, the Midway, yeah.
That was a conscious decision because of the amount of time we were going to be staffed.
I got you.
That was offered, Ms. McPhail offered us a very nice spot, but based upon the number of hours that we were going to be there versus the number of hours the fair was going to be open, I didn't think it'd be fair to take a main drag spot.
Gotcha.
From someone else.
Well, it was fun talking to people, met a lot of people. Mr. Julian Davis's dad, the councilman's dad and mom over there, and met a lot of nice people. So it's fun to get out and talk to folks, and I enjoyed the fair. Fair was great. Gwen and Stanley and all those people, that's amazing. That's an amazing fair. We really need to support it.
I don't know if y'all know, but Saturday night, the traffic was lined out all the way back to the Highway 11 bridge, trying to get into the fair.
And I'm late, too. They
Late.
were coming in at 10 o'clock.
Yes, they were. Everything had finished, and they were still coming in. So
It was,
it was a success, I think.
as a spinoff, I don't know to bring that up now or later or new business, but the rodeo, do you have any numbers of attendance or money or?
I do not. I'm not part of the fair board, so I honestly do not. I will tell you, they had a packed house both nights, standing room only. They had, the rodeo, the association they went with, they're always going to have those contestants, but so you're always going to have a full house there. But they had, as far as the bleachers and the stands, it was full. Actually, when you mentioned Mr. Councilman Davis, his little girl celebrated her birthday at the rodeo, which I thought was excellent, and she was precious. And they recognized her. We didn't know that's who that was until after we'd already recognized And so, but that's who she, and I thought that was great, that he showed his support by bringing his entire family and their entire group to the fair. So I thought that was a good thing.
Okay, are we good on 7 with the fair?
The
Table summary?
contest, ma'am?
Yeah. I just wanted to tell y'all that we had, our recipe contest did a lot for us as far as the information we were trying to receive. We didn't have that many recipes. We only had, what I decided to do, we have a grand prize winner, and then everybody that participated is a winner. There was about 6 different people, and of those 6 people, this is how this works. There were 6 markets mentioned in this recipe contest. Foothills Heritage Market, Three Oaks Farm, Louder Branch Farms, Clemson's Farmers Market, Cafe, and Marlene's Place were all mentioned as places, markets where these people bought the ingredients or could buy their ingredients to do their recipes. Okay, there were we're calling them vendors, the farmers, growers that were mentioned. There were 8 of those. And Hollyfield Orchard, Susan Marie Bees, Corvabella Farms, Louder Branch Farms, Lazy River Homestead. I still haven't figured out if they sell stuff or not. I'm working on that. Three Oaks Farms, the Reed Learning Center, that's the garden that the Oconee Cultivation Project has. And again, Marlene's one of the farmers that was mentioned. And there was 17 different vegetables or products mentioned. We had, I'll just tell you, I mean, the normal tomatoes and whatever, but with the real cool things was I think I'm saying it's Treboni squash, and spaghetti squash, lavender. One of the cakes had lavender as one of the ingredients. And we had young women that were at the Foothills Farm that sold lavender there several weeks.
Right.
And if y'all don't know anything about growing, if you know anything about growing lavender, if you don't, lavender is one of the most difficult things to grow in this area.
Really?
It's very difficult to grow in this area. But we have a lavender farm. It's up around, I think it's up around Long Creek area. And but what I would like to do is to compile this in a report, and I will also want to talk about the markets where not only where people are buying things, but where our people are going to sell their product. I traveled to several different farmers markets in the area where our people are. So did Sandra, and I would like for y'all to approve me to summarize this and do a report for the county council. And we were talking about maybe do it the week time when we proclaim it Agriculture Month, sometime during that month.
If I may, the recommendation from Ag Board to Council to proclaim November Ag Advisory Month will be in November 13th meeting, I believe, or November 13th, I believe that's the date. And that's just an advisory capacity. So if perhaps that's when you wanted to do it, that may dovetail nicely into any action council may choose to take.
And hopefully we can get some ideas of how we can go from there and how we need to either make that better or, have better opportunities for our people or, either customers or vendors.
And now we just need a motion and vote to allow Ms. Sewell to talk on behalf of the Ag Board.
Motion.
I mean,
Second? All right, everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
I also would like to be able, I'm using my Facebook Sales Voice for Agriculture to do the photographs at this point.
Oh, nice.
I hope that we can do that. I hope that we can put the photographs that I collected from the recipes on somewhere on the county website.
Certainly. So we have the market table thing. We have work on the comp plan, all of that. I'm just waiting for the directory to kind of come to life a little bit more. We'll stop the edits, things like that nature. But after that, we'll be good to go.
I was gonna bring up this under new business, but I just passed a copy of the proclamation around. It contains the new numbers that I've dug up and researched, and I feel pretty confident that those are very accurate, as best as estimates can be. So, based on the 2012 census and some adjustments in forestry numbers and whatnot, we can show where the county has about 302.5 million income from agriculture annually. So
I'll
we
get some
need to, to approve this. I changed the wording a little bit. I'll give you a copy.
No, sir. Last meeting, we voted to allow you to go ahead and write it and send. This
Okay.
is just for informational purposes.
Okay, all right. Ag and Art, any questions? Okay. Ag and Art, festival was pretty good. Any comments on it?
No, overall, the people that sponsored it, thought it was a very big success.
I got a thank you note from Miss Cooper. It was very pleasant being at her place. Sorry I couldn't be at both places, but, I thought it was good, and, she gave me some valuable comments, and we had good discussion. So thanks for the ag folks and Mr. Chapman for speaking at the Planning Commission meeting. That was very good, and I think it was received well. And back to the farmer's market thing, Dr. Drake suggested a cooperative to try to pull these entities together and bring them in one place, the farm center, because we're scattered. So we'll entertain some ideas on that next time, how to get people to cooperate. So,
Good luck.
well, that's our mission, so cooperation and communication, and that's what we're trying to do, so come up with some ideas. All right, that's enough discussion for no one night. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye, yes. Bang, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Adam.
I enjoyed